Full Bloom is brought to you in part by the following. Welcome to Full Bloom, the award-winning show that celebrates life. Here's your host, Zita Christian.
Hi everyone, welcome to Full Bloom. I'm Zita Christian. Have you ever thought about having your own website? Now I know a lot of businesses do, and in today's world they all should. But even if you don't have a business, have you thought about having a website for a special project or an interest that you have? Or maybe you are a small business and you're saying to yourself, it's time that I got a website. Well, we're going to talk about that tonight because with me is a woman who has a company right here in Connecticut, in Windsor, Connecticut. The company is called hostingct.com. And she is going to tell us all kinds of information about creating and maintaining and redesigning websites. Her name is Paula Pierce. Paula, thanks very much for being on the show.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
This is exciting. I've had several shows where I've said to the audience right up front, because I have people ask me, how do you pick your guests?
Oh.
I pick a guest based on what information I need to know. So if I have somebody come on and I can talk and I can ask you questions, and there's definitely a personal reason why I want to know this information, but I'm sure that I'm not the only one who is looking at, building a website. And in my case, I need to simplify so that I can maintain a website because I don't know all the ins and outs. So I'm very, very happy that you're here, and then we can talk about this. So I noticed that the tagline for your company is that you are dedicated to taking the mystery out of online business.
Yes.
I love that. I think that is great. And the first thing, when I saw that, I thought, oh, thank goodness. And then I thought, because there is so much mystery.
Right.
There's a lot of mystery in this.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about some of, at least what I think, the big pieces are. Mm-hmm. And the first one, I think it's the most basic, and that's the name.
Right.
Getting a name. So how do you get a name for a website? What's involved?
Well, there's a few steps. First, you've got to brainstorm and think about what is the website going to be for? What's the goal of the website? Who's going to be going to it? What is it for? And then you take your ideas on the words that are associated with that concept. So, for instance, if you have a shoe store, you might consider words like, obviously, shoes and store, but also other things, types of shoes. You might consider flip-flops galore, or who knows, it depends on the business itself. But I encourage people to be creative when trying to think of a domain name.
Okay, so let's say that I've thought of a name for a website. What do I do next? How do I know nobody else has my name?
Good question. Well, I can certainly find out that very quickly for you, but there's actually a website that you can go to and look. It's called a Whois, and actually a lot of registrars have this on their website. You'll see a link right on the site that says Whois, and you click it, and it allows you to type in your suggested name, and it will tell you if it's available or not, or it might even give you suggestions of related names.
Oh, that's good to know. All right, so let's say I've come up with idea, I've brainstormed, I've got some good words, I've got my idea, and I've checked the Whois, and I know that the name I want is available. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things that I noticed was there are all these options for, you could have the name, and then it would be a .com or a .net or a .biz or a .org or there's so many things after the dot. So what does all that mean, and how does a person determine what their website should be?
That's another good question. Most people who are looking for a website online, if they're looking for a business, they'll try a .com first. No matter what it actually is, they'll think .com. So if you are running a business, if this is for a business site, I would suggest getting the .com if you can. If it's already taken, then you have some other options. The .net is also very well used. People won't find that very foreign. If you have a .net, that won't cause too much trouble for them. But if you start with some of the other domains, honestly, the public isn't as open to those, so they're not used to typing .biz or .co or .cc or all these new TLDs that are coming out.
I haven't even heard of those.
There are so many, so many. And then each country has their own, it's usually a .co, .uk or .co.ca for the country name. So Canada would be CA and UK obviously would be the United Kingdom.
But you can't just pick that because you think it sounds cool.
You shouldn't. You shouldn't. You should have a reason. If you went that far to get a country domain, you should have some kind of representation in that country, really.
Okay, but are you saying that if I come up, let's say the flipflopsgalore.com, but somebody else might have flipflopsgalore.biz or .net or
Right.
something else?
Yeah, they're all
that's
independent.
Confusing.
Well, that's the interesting thing. For instance, when I buy a domain name for my use, I'll usually look for the .com first, and often I'll buy the .net and the .org as well to prevent someone else from buying them and using them and having a confusion with my customers.
Oh, okay, we need to talk. Okay, that's good to know. So that's the whole idea about the domain name. So then let's say you pick what you want, it's available, and then the .com is available, and you might also buy the .biz and the .org.
.net is the
or the
common
.net
one.
and the .org. And so you go on a website and give them your credit card and you say, this is the name I want. And then there are a lot of questions, like, do you want it for a year? Do you want it for
Right.
3 years or 5 years? And there are all these add-on things they ask you about.
Right.
What are the implications? And we don't have to go into all the specifics, but what are sort of like an overarching implication of how you answer these questions?
Well, the span of time you register for initially is not really too important. You can do 1 year up front. You can do up to 10 years at a time if you want to. Some clients like to do that because they don't want to be bothered thinking about it every year to renew it. But some just do it every year. They'll have their hosting for a year and their domain name matches. They come due at the same time, and that's how they keep track. But so the time period I don't think is too important. You've got to do at least 1 year. That's the minimum.
Okay.
But the other questions are things like domain privacy. So you may or may not find that important. If you choose to add on domain privacy for a fee, then your information will not be available. The contact information won't be available in the Whois searches. So it'll be kind of a generic listing. It won't say your name and your address and your phone.
So if I had flipflopsgalore.com, if somebody went to Whois and flipflopsgalore.com showed up, it would show Zita Christian owns that.
Right.
So if I said privacy, my name wouldn't appear
That's
there.
exactly right.
Oh. Well, if they're going to go on the site anyway and I've got my name and contact information there, what's the point?
Yeah, I don't think it's too big a deal. I have some people that do like to hide it, and I think they think they're keeping their email address out of harvesters' hands and they'll get less spam. I don't know if that's really true or not, but that's their theory behind it.
Okay. Well, you mentioned a minute ago the word that I want to talk with you most about, and that's hosting.
Right.
So your company is called hostingct.com. So I know you host. But what is hosting?
It's a good question. Hosting, it's really funny because when people first hear my company name, Hosting Connecticut, some people think I do catering or something like that. And I said, no, website hosting. And it's just it's a funny term that, the general public doesn't hear that often, so they don't really know. But really all it is providing space on a server connected to the internet that's reliable and has backup and temperature controlled, data center and all that, so that it's going to be there when you need it. And that's a place for your website files to exist so that other people online can find it and see it. That's where the files come from.
Is it a physical place?
Yes. Well, it's a machine. It's a server, a computer, where your files are located.
Okay. Because I've always had that, that ponder that great question of, where is the internet? Can I drive there?
It's out there somewhere.
It's out there, yes.
You can drive to your server if you want, but there's not really a good reason to do so.
Yeah. Well, so for the hosting, because I suppose we should clarify, just for you in the audience, I have just engaged the services of hostingct.com for a new little venture I'm working on. You'll hear about that another time. But the idea of hosting means that I give you or transfer to you, or however that was, the domain name that I purchased someplace else. And so I want to make sure that's the people know that's possible.
Yes.
Because I didn't know about you when I got the domain name.
Right.
And then I found out about your company, and I thought it's local and it's owned and run by women, and I really like this. And so I had the name transferred. So you have the name, and then I'm working through Hosting CT to create the site, the design, and I don't even know what all else is going to be coming from all of this.
May I make a comment
Yes.
on that? Yes, you mentioned the domain name. You had the domain name first, and you got the hosting second, and basically you just had to match them up so that when people typed in your domain name, they'd see your files. They're directed to the right place. So when you buy a domain name and then you host it somewhere, you just have to make sure that the host tells you where to point your domain name. And then you can log into your domain account and make that change so everything's pointed correctly.
And that really was very simple. And I'm not computer literate at all. I mean, well, I shouldn't say at all. A tiny bit. But there was much about this that was foreign. So the next thing, the whole idea of website design. And this is, I think, where people get really excited or frustrated.
Or scared.
Yes.
There's all kinds of emotions involved.
Because there's so much. It's like starting with a piece of land and having somebody bring in all kinds of building materials and just leaving them all around the periphery and saying, okay, go ahead, build a house.
Right, especially if you want to do it yourself, which a lot of small businesses do.
Yeah.
They have the pieces, they have the domain now, they figured out how to get hosting. What's the next step? You have to have the website itself to put there. So there are a lot of different ways to create a website, and there's kind of two main pieces to it. You know, there's the design, of course, the way it looks, and then there's the functionality in the back end, which is the programming and what it does when you're there.
Well, let's talk about the look first. So or maybe you have to talk about, does the functionality drive the look, or does it matter which
Hopefully
place
not.
you start?
Hopefully not. You should be able to get the design that you want first and put it into the software you're going to use. Some software has limitations, though, so you've got to kind of be wary of that and look around, see what you really want to do first, and then figure out what software or technology is going to work for you.
All right. So let's say if we start with the design. Now, we're talking, from my very recent experience, I know that we're talking about color, and we're talking about what a page looks like, how many columns it has on it, what kind of design. I mean, some things, I looked at a lot of samples, look very modern, and some looked old-fashioned, and some minimalist, and some fussy, some very bright color, some pastel. I mean, and that was just
It's overwhelming, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. So there's so much to consider. And then I know some of the things that I wanted to be able to have photos, I wanted to be able to link video, and I want to create a blog. So I know in terms of functionality I want that. I'm not looking to sell something, but not directly over the website, but other people on their websites, they might. So there's all of these pieces right here at the very beginning. Is there something in terms of the appearance first? Let's work with that. Is there anything in terms of the appearance that you advise someone when they're starting out?
I usually ask them, if someone comes to me for design, I say, well, do you have a logo? What is your logo? What's the feel of it? What colors are you using? If it's a company or an organization, often they'll have an existing logo and that they're going to continue to use. And of course, you want all your branding to be the same, so they're going to use it on their brochures and their business cards and the website. So that's where I start. And from the logo is where the design should evolve from. It's got to match completely with that logo, the feel of it. If it's a casual logo, if it's more traditional, the website design itself has to follow that.
That's important. That's very important. So let's talk too about the text that goes on the logo, because I know for me and for many of my friends who are venturing into this as well, my writer friends, we want the ability to change the text whenever we want to, and not to have to send it to someone and then wait for that person to have time to do it, and then have it, I don't know, get activated or whatever the word is, and then by that time, sugar, I might have made 2 or 3 changes since then. So
true.
I want something that I can change immediately, and that I think is where this new to me anyway, technology, or this new program called WordPress, and I think there are probably others like it.
Oh yeah.
But it's the only one I know about. But it offers this idea that I, as the writer, can go in and change things when I want. Now, are there limitations to using any of these programs, WordPress or anyone like it?
There are. It depends on your resources and the amount of time that you want to spend on it, really, because something like WordPress, that's an open source program, meaning it's a free program, and that there are programmers all over the place providing content for that, adding, add-ons, creating little modules that you can add on to that software to extend it and do other things. In other words, you have WordPress, you can add an e-commerce module. You can add something to help you with spam. There's different things that you can add on to do more with the website. But there are certain limitations. For instance, if you just installed the default version of WordPress, it doesn't have your logo. It doesn't, the pages aren't really the way you want. The navigation is set. So you need to add something of a design to it. You can download a lot of free designs. They're called themes for WordPress. And you download it, you install it. It's pretty simple to do. And all of a sudden you've got a nice looking website based on that theme. It's got colors, it's got graphics, and it looks good. So there are a lot of those that you can download for free, or there's some that you can purchase, depending on really what you want to do with it.
Okay, so that whole idea of creating the look, I think that people need to know that's not necessarily something that's going to happen instantly, unless people are very decisive and it's like, okay, that's
true.
fine, let it go. But I'm finding I'm going back and forth and change this color and all sorts of things. But that's this whole idea about creating. I want to talk a little bit about maintaining a site. What's the idea behind maintaining a site? Because I've heard people say to me, oh, well, you better be sure you have something new up there every day, week, month, or something. What's the recommendation?
Well, there's a couple reasons to keep the website updated frequently. You don't have to do it every day, but depending on the content and the type of visitors that you have, you might choose your own schedule. It might be once a month. Some people it might be quarterly, believe it or not. Oh. But things, with social media and everything, people want new ideas immediately. So doing it every day is great too. But there's two pieces to it. One good reason to keep your website updated is for your visitors, of course. And the second one is to keep the search engines interested in coming back to look at your content and re-index you based on the content of each page, so that you'll come up in search engines and in Google searches and Bing searches based on certain terms.
Oh, yeah, that's a very important piece, isn't it?
It's a whole other thing.
Do you make sure to always be noticed?
Right. Well, the search engines like an updated site. They don't like to see, and they know, they don't have real human eyes looking at it all the time, but they have programs that go out and they check the last updated dates of your files. And if it hasn't been updated in a year, they don't care. They're going to drop you lower and lower for wherever you were ranked for whatever terms.
Okay. Now, is there a difference between maintaining and redesign? Because then does redesign involve like a new logo and new colors, or is there something else about redesigning?
Well, maintenance, my theory on maintenance is that it's keeping the website updated. It's adding new content. If you're a business, you might add a new product line, and you have to get that onto your website.
Okay.
You might add a contest or a sale, or a nonprofit organization might have a fundraiser or something like that, and they want to get that information on. That, to me, is maintenance.
Okay.
Redesign is kind of something else. It's when the site has gotten stale, or if it's not doing what the owner wants it to do, if they're not getting the results they want, whatever that may be, selling something, getting email addresses from people, whatever the goal is. If it's not doing it, you might want to consider redesign.
All right. Now, I know when somebody comes to you and they already have a website, that one of the services you offer is to look at that website and evaluate it. And when you do that, what are you looking for? And what can you fix?
So many things. Well, you can kind of tell yourself, if you do a quick sampling of the internet in general and look at some sites, if you look at 5 sites, you'll see 1 or 2 that are just terrible. It's just the truth. So when I look at someone's site to evaluate it, I'm looking at the overall design and layout. Is it interesting? Has it been updated? That again goes back to maintenance. Maybe they haven't been updating it. Is it obvious to me what I should do next when I go there? There's a website development book that I love, and it's called Don't Make Me Think. And the whole book tells you that when you're designing a website, make it as absolutely easy as possible for the visitor to do what they want to do. Make it clear, easy, obvious, what buttons they should click next to, learn more, whatever it is, but don't make it confusing in any way at all.
Good point. Good point. And then do you ever look at a site and say, these are terrible colors, or these will put people off? Or
Yep. I mean, there's degrees of that. I'll see a website that was designed 10 years ago and it's got 10 different font colors and 10 different font styles on the homepage, and it just makes me cry.
And I haven't figured out how to change the font yet. And when I do, go crazy.
But that's an obvious thing that
Yeah.
I would say. But yeah, if you've got a very serious site and you've got pinks and bright purples and things on there, you might rethink that because your audience isn't going to respond to that.
And I think the whole concept of color is there's such a psychology to it. It's important. So what about, I want to talk about blogs and social media. Friends of mine, I have a big writing community I belong to, and everybody's blogging. They've been blogging for years. Some people are saying, blogging's passé now, do something else. But blogging, I think, is still, at least with the writing community, it's still a very popular task, project, concept. And the whole idea, they're saying, is that you blog because it feeds into the whole concept of social media. So could you talk about blogging and social media?
Sure.
Because I don't know exactly where they cross.
It's an interesting question because originally when blogs really were the norm, and they're the norm now, but when they first began to be popular, the idea was that you're adding new content. So you'd have a blog and it would be located right on your own site, not an external hosted thing that's on another like blogger.com or something. You want it right on your own domain name on your site. Because when you add more content, as they say, is king. It's just the truth. And when you have more content about an interesting topic that relates to your overall site, you're giving not only your visitors good information that they want to read, that they'll come back for, you're giving more fodder to those search engines. So they'll be drawn to your site. They'll come to your site. They'll see the text, and they'll rank it based on what that content is, what the actual words are, and that's how they'll tell where to put you in the results that they give the public.
All right. Now, just for some people in the audience who are really new to this, what is a blog?
Okay, a blog is originally it was an abbreviation for web log, like a journal. And so people use it to express their opinions. There are a lot of specific topic blogs, like you have a political opinion and you're passionate about it, so you have a blog, and every day or every 2 days you post something interesting about a decision going on in the legislature, or you have a photo or a video or something of interest to the people that follow you. So as a writer, this is coming out of you, and this is your passion, and it really gets people interested, and you get some very rabid followers, really, if this is a good topic. So those people come to your blog, and again, the goal for most bloggers is to get them to the site because either they might want to be famous, I don't know, but they might also want to monetize. They want to make some revenue off of this website or blog, and so they have advertising on it. And the more visitors they get, the more valuable their advertising is.
Oh, this is a whole new world here, Paula. Okay, this I can see we're going to have several other conversations. So now let's move from that into this whole social media, because when I think social media, I think Facebook and Twitter and,
Yeah.
and YouTube.
Yep.
So what is this whole concept of social media, and how does that tie into having a website?
Social media, to me, is really glorified word of mouth. It's personal networking on a global scale. So as a business person or as a nonprofit organization, executive director of a group or something, it's very valuable. Obviously, word of mouth is the most valuable kind of marketing or publicity that you can do because you're making a connection with someone.
Okay.
When you take that to social marketing, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, you're kind of taking that little piece of that, the rapport that you build with one person at a networking meeting. This is now social media, and it's on a huge scale. So for instance, if you have Facebook, you're using Facebook as your social media, and you post out a comment about whatever, all your friends or your fans, if you're a business, see that message on their wall, it's called on Facebook. And the interesting thing about that is not just that all those people have expressed an interest in getting that information, but if they react to that information somehow by posting a comment about it or clicking the little like button or something, then your message with their comment goes out to all that person's friends as well. So it really has huge potential to just get that word out about your company or organization or your artwork or whatever it is to a huge community right away.
Oh, I get it. Okay, so that's why sometimes you'll get a message that somebody posted some video about the two babies or something, and all of a sudden everybody in the world is watching
That's right. It just goes quickly. If when you decide you're going to use social media and you are thinking about what should you post, people react to things that, number one, their friends like. So if their friend recommends this, they're going to look at it, and they might recommend it to their other friends. They also react to things that they find funny, that they find disgusting or disturbing. People react. So it's those kinds of things that, you try not to go to the negative side, but those interesting and funny things, those are things you want people to spread the word about and help your brand or your message.
So do you think there are going to be a proliferation of social media types of things, like the LinkedIn, the YouTube, and the...
Yes, I mean there already kind of is, but it's just going to be more and more. I mean, I just read in a book that I'm reading about good customer service. Really, is what the book is about. But it says, which is kind of revolutionary in my eyes. He says search engine optimization may be going by the wayside slowly because social media is going to take over.
Oh my!
Which is a huge statement.
It really is, and that is saying that what the average person says, it's almost like reality TV. I see some sort of a correlation, but it's the people saying, here's what you should be looking at.
Right, this is what we think is important.
Oh, very interesting, very interesting. So we only have a couple minutes left, Paula, and I want to go back to one thing about some of these features that you can have on a website. One of them I know has to do with commerce and people being able to use a credit card. And if I understand correctly, if you're going to give your credit card on a website, you want that HTTP to have an S.
Yes, exactly, for security.
Is that what it is?
It is, yeah.
So you can feel safe in giving a credit card on a site that begins HTTPS.
As long as you know, if the rest of the domain remains the same, then yes. For instance, if I can just say a random brand name, Amazon, I guess. If you see HTTPS and then Amazon, you know it's Amazon site. If you see HTTPS and all of a sudden there's some other strange characters there that doesn't say Amazon.com, then you worry.
Okay, so that's good to know. Now, I noticed on your website that Hosting Connecticut is certified as a woman-owned small minority business enterprise. What does that mean?
Well, the government sets aside a certain amount of contracts for small businesses and minority businesses and women-owned businesses. So there's really I think it's really 3 categories. And it's because they want to promote and help those smaller enterprises compete with the bigger ones.
I think that's wonderful. I'm glad to know that my tax dollars are doing something like that and give the small businesses a chance. Paula, we have about 30 seconds left, and I want to ask, for the people in the audience who are listening and going, yeah, I want my own website, give me a couple tips that you might share with them in terms of getting started.
Sure. The first one is one everybody needs to know, and it's make sure you have control of your domain name. Don't let a designer register it for you and put it in their name. That's a big problem. In the future, you won't be able to get control of it. So you want to have your own domain name and your name with a login.
Okay, and unfortunately, I'm getting the message that we're out of time. So, Paula, I'm going to have you back, if it's okay with you. Maybe a couple months from now, when I have a little more experience about this, we'll talk about it again. So, thanks very much for sharing the ideas. I know it's helpful information for the people in the audience, certainly for me. And let me just say a thank you to my FB crew and to you in the viewing audience. I say this every week, and I mean it sincerely. I do know the value of time. And I very much appreciate that once again you chose to spend an evening with me. Do join us again next time. Bye-bye.
Full Bloom is brought to you in part by the following: